Concealed Wisconsin Podcast, Episode 6. Welcome to Concealed Wisconsin, a podcast about guns, Wisconsin, and you. In today's episode, we'll be talking with Dominic Ferraro, the president of Advanced Protection Group, LLC. You may have heard Dominic in the media discussing concealed carry issues over the past several months. He is a patriot, constitutional carry advocate, and Second Amendment proponent, and it is a privilege to have him on today's show. My name is Andy, and I am the host of Concealed Wisconsin, and I want to thank you for tuning in to today's show. Before we get started with the interview, I want to encourage you to check us out on Facebook and like our page. It's becoming a great community of pro-gun advocates and a place to learn, discuss, and get involved. If you're looking for where to download an application for your concealed carry license, be sure to check out concealedwisconsin.com and the show notes for this episode. There are links for all the things that we're going to discuss today, including where you can download your concealed carry license. All right, and today we are going to be talking with Dominic Ferraro. He's the president of Advanced Protection Group, LLC, located in Westfield, Wisconsin, and he is a specialist in training as well as several other things that we're going to be talking about. But being that this is the first official week where concealed carry law is active and people are able to apply for their licenses and send those in, we're going to be spending a little bit more time talking about the concealed carry law, some of the specifics, and some of the training that we advocate as part of the gun community. There's been a lot of talk recently, as you know, about pro training and not wanting training mandated. And I think through the conversations I've had with several different people in the gun community, including people on the board of Wisconsin Carry, the point isn't that they are anti-training. They're very pro-training. They're just anti-mandated training, where the government tells us what we need and how to best suit us, instead of us being mature adults and being able to go out and find the training that we feel comfortable with to be able to do what we want to do. So without further ado, I want to welcome Dominic to Concealed Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us today. And Dominic, just take a second to say hi to everybody and maybe introduce yourself a little bit further.
Well, Andy, I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to come on your great podcast. It's been really good in the past, and we're excited about what you're going to be doing in the future. As you had said, I'm with Advanced Protection Group. Been in business since 2004, and we are strong advocates for gun rights here in Wisconsin. We've been doing everything we can to help further the concealed carry movement, and we are staunch supporters of constitutional carry.
You know, that's interesting that you say that, and thank you for that. I'm a pro-constitutional carryist myself. Not as many people in the training world are constitutional carry advocates because there's probably a variety of reasons, but one of them that I could think of off the bat is that they may fear that would take away from their business opportunity in mandated training. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts have always been, I am a patriot before I'm a businessman. I believe that we can trust the good law-abiding citizens of this country to make good decisions. As you mentioned early on here, people can make sound decisions. They know what kind of training they're going to need and what they're comfortable with. And I've always said, I don't need to have the government mandate training for me to be in business. People will seek us out. They'll seek out training if they feel that they need it. And I'll tell you, they have. Many of our classes are filled with people that have already met the training requirement, but they're hungry for more information. They want to be as educated and as responsible as possible. And they've made the personal decision to seek out more training and take responsibility for their own personal safety. And, we don't need the government to interfere in that. Any kind of a training mandate is an infringement on our Second Amendment rights.
Absolutely. You know, when we talk about concealed carry and this new law and the applications being available as of the 1st of November, the idea that one person could go and have to download an application, send it in, and wait the 45 potential days. You did it a little differently. You actually left from Westfield and traveled down to Madison and hand delivered it. Tell me a little bit about what that was like and why you did that.
Well, it was actually surprisingly painless. Given some of the things that the Department of Justice has been doing in the last couple of months, a lot of us anticipated that this process was going to be a little complicated. But I got down here last night, spent the night in Madison, stayed up, downloaded the application. I believe they had it on their website about 12:05 or 12:10 in the morning. Filled it out and was at the Attorney General Van Hollen's office at the Capitol first thing this morning and hand-delivered it. And I was impressed to see that they had a person dedicated to accepting the applications. She had a dedicated receptacle that she was placing them in, and they even had free envelopes available for people to put their paperwork in. There was a lot of other gun groups there. I saw, a good handful of people that were doing the same thing, and we've already got numbers reported back from the DOJ as far as how things went today with the applications.
What kind of numbers are we looking at?
What we're seeing, the preliminary reports are that they received approximately 110 applications today. So I'd assume that most of those were hand-delivered, if not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They approved 90 of those applications, and they've already printed 45 licenses. We don't have any information if they've actually mailed those 45 out. I would assume if they went in the mail today or tomorrow, some good citizens here in Wisconsin will be able to exercise their rights by the end of the week.
One thing that was interesting is the number of downloads that the Department of Justice said came out of between midnight and 9 o'clock. Tell me a little bit about how many downloads there were and if it surprised you at all.
No, it didn't surprise me at all. So we saw reports that indicated between midnight and 9 a.m. that there were 83,000 downloads of applications, and I believe there was between 800,000 and 1 million hits on their website.
And we know that this concealed carry law is something that's being paid attention to, not just in the state of Wisconsin, although it's been very controversial for probably no reason at all. 48 other states have this. There haven't been huge shootouts and all the things hitting the fan as people always prophesize that's going to happen. But it's interesting that the country is really paying attention to this, probably because of all the controversy with the governor and the budget bill and everything else. Wisconsin's really become a political ground for observing through the fish tank, so to speak. When you were in Madison, were there a lot of reporters, or was it a big story, or was it pretty quiet?
It's actually a pretty big story here in Madison. There were several reporters at the Capitol and around the Capitol, but they're just looking for different angles to talk about. What we're seeing here, and for several years here since I've been trying to get concealed carry moved along, it's a fear of the unknown. That's why we get these ridiculous assumptions about what's going to happen when we have concealed carry. Like you had mentioned, it's a fear of the unknown, and there are people that just absolutely refuse to have an open mind and refuse to accept that good people, by their very nature, aren't going to be committing crimes with their concealed weapons.
Right. What did you think about the fact that since we are reciprocating with other states, that because the application started at November 1st when the law became enacted, there are people from other states able to carry concealed inside of Wisconsin before actual citizens of Wisconsin could do that.
Yeah, I always thought that was a little bit peculiar. It's just the way the law went. We have the law as it was written and passed and signed was a phenomenal law. It's absolutely the closest that we can get to constitutional carry, short of constitutional carry. Now, I understand there's a lot of people that were unhappy that there was a compromise, that we passed this law. There's a lot of people that say, look, it's all or nothing. Either we go constitutional carry or we don't do anything. But the way politics works, and unfortunately we have to play the game, is we had a compromise. We're all going to live with that compromise, and if we all are the best stewards of this law and of our Second Amendment rights, when it comes time next year or the year after to continue pushing forward to constitutional carry, we will have proven our point that all the doomsday prophecies were false.
Right. And as a proponent of pro-gun legislation and just the ability to exercise your Second Amendment rights, I think we both can agree that this law has been a major step towards Wisconsin, being in the mainstream when it comes to gun rights, and it's reversed the clock on some really ancient laws that really didn't make sense to begin with. I mean, we had open carry, but we couldn't keep our gun in the car, so we had to encase it and unload it every single time, and just some things that really didn't make a whole lot of sense safety-wise. It put us in a lot more danger unloading and reloading our gun every time, and it was kind of an inconvenience type of thing, maybe to put a little control on the people. But we're excited that this passed, and we're really encouraging people to get out there and get trained. And so my next question for you is, what kind of training? You've been doing training with guns since 2004, and what kind of training do you recommend people get? Particularly, I have my hunter safety, and I could have just used that if I wanted to, but I've got training from another state. I spent 8.5 hours in a classroom, went through all the legal different proceedings and things like that to get my out-of-state carry license for Minnesota. What are you focusing on in your classes, and what do you recommend people really consider doing so that they're prepared?
Well, I don't believe that there's any one-size-fits-all training. So what we've done is we've restructured our courses. We have a basic level, an intermediate level, and an advanced level. And what we do in our basic level is essentially approximately 8 hours of classroom training. It's very intense. We talk about a whole host of things. Obviously, we talk about self-defense and concealed carry law, but we really get into ethical concerns. We get into emotional concerns. What happens to your body and your brain before, during, and after defensive use of your firearm encounter. We talk about mindset. We talk about preparing yourself to avoid conflict, and to put yourself, to walk through the world a safer person and a more alert person. And just by doing that, you're going to avoid conflict, and you're going to save your life an untold number of times. And you'll never know, because you're walking through the world not looking like a victim.
Right.
You're walking through the world looking like a sheepdog. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, just thinking of, going anywhere around, even our small town. But, when I go to the mall in the Twin Cities, for instance, and I'm walking through the mall, how many people are carrying their phone, not paying attention to a thing around them? Their purse is dangling off their shoulder, and they're texting or they're listening to their iPod, oblivious to who's behind them and whatnot. Or even going to a parking garage or something. People just don't pay attention to what's going on around them, and that puts them in so much jeopardy because they're just oblivious to any potential danger, and they have no awareness. So it resonates with what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying.
Well, you're right, Andy. A lot of people live their lives in denial, and denial that bad things can happen, and that's a victim. That's a victim mentality. But aside from what's included in someone's training courses, what I think is important for people to realize when they're choosing an instructor or an instructing organization is that you're not just being prepared to meet the basic requirements of the law. You're not being just prepared to win the fight on the street. You need to know that you're going to be able to win the fight in the courtroom and win the emotional side of it as well, long term.
Right.
What I think is important is that people really vet out their instructors. What experience does your instructor have? How long have they been doing it? How long have they been carrying a concealed weapon? What's their real-world experience? And on top of that, is it an instructor or an instructor organization that you can count on to be there several years from now, should you ever have to use your firearm and end up in a courtroom? Will they be there to stand up and testify that you did the right thing?
That's an interesting point. I guess I hadn't thought of that. The organization that I trained with has been around for a long time, but I never connected those dots, so to speak, in the sense that I'm going to, in the event of shooting or having to brandish my weapon, may have to call upon them as the trainer to have them come in and say, yeah, I did indeed train him, and he was paying attention in class and did a good job on the range. That makes total sense. So, yeah, you want to make sure that you're dealing with some reputable trainers as well. That's good advice. Well, if you were going to talk to people in a class, I'm wondering, as you're training these people, what would the advice be for the items that you should have with you while you're carrying a gun, as far as not just the gun itself, but what are the precautionary items that you would have in the sense of if you had to use that gun, who would you contact? What would be the first thing you would do? And what would you say to the police? Are there any cue cards or tips or anything that you would suggest people that are just now applying for this permit or license that they would include in their purse or their wallet to stay safe?
Sure. That's a really good question, and it's difficult to give you a specific answer because everybody's lifestyle is different and every situation is going to be different. But at a minimum, in a perfect world, obviously you're going to want to have your firearm. If possible, you would like to be able to carry extra ammunition. It's not always feasible for people, but if you talk to anybody that's been in a gunfight and you ask them what they would have done differently, and they're going to tell you they would have brought more ammunition along. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a means of communication, a cell phone. If you can't afford a cell phone, you should have a cell phone, an old used cell phone in your car with a car charger, because any old cell phone, whether you have service hooked up to it or not, by law has to be able to dial 911. And we recommend people also do that in their households. But you need a means of communication. You certainly should have considered legal consequences and found an attorney that you can call on should you find yourself in a negative legal situation where you need the advice of an attorney. Mm-hmm. As far as what to say to the police, there's a lot of varying opinions on that out in the world of training. Many trainers will advocate saying absolutely nothing to law enforcement. They will even give you, like you said, a cue card or a business card with some pre-formatted language that essentially you're exercising your right to not speak, and you want an attorney, and you don't consent to any searches. While I understand that it's important for people to understand what their rights are and that they can exercise them, we're advocates of common sense. And every situation is going to be different, but we are advocates of common sense, and sometimes providing some basic information to law enforcement about what happened certainly isn't going to necessarily incriminate you, and it may result in that encounter being more favorable to you. But again, I have to throw this out there, we're not attorneys, so we really don't give legal advice. But we leave that up to the professionals. So we tell people, find an attorney before you start carrying. Make sure there's an attorney that understands the law, self-defense, and concealed carry law, and it's going to be available to you. And as a side note, we tell everybody in our class if they should find an attorney, and that attorney desires training or information, we will do that for free for any group of attorneys that's interested in that. We come out and do that. And we provide that free training to law enforcement as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's definitely something to consider well beforehand, and so I totally hear what you're saying. I went through the training with the Minnesota group, and they did give those cue cards. I do carry them in my wallet. In fact, earlier today I did an interview with a Wisconsin attorney who does criminal defense, and we talked specifically about that. And oddly enough, he said, I am an attorney, but, this is still not legal advice. You need to go talk to an actual attorney face to face. So everybody wants their disclaimers, and that's great because people really need to take that serious. Now, one of the things that was interesting that kind of came to mind as we were talking about this, the emotional mindset and the emotional health, before, after, and during a shooting or some kind of a confrontation. I posted something on Facebook, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but it had to do with the fact that some people are probably not supposed to carry, not that they shouldn't carry because of some law or anything, but some people just are not geared in a way where carrying a gun would be beneficial to them. And there was one individual who took great offense to that and answered back very negatively that that kind of a statement is horrible because it's just encouraging people not to carry and exercise their rights and whatnot. And I tried to explain to him that when you carry a gun, you are exercising a right, but you're also taking on a huge responsibility. And if you have to kill somebody, that could weigh on you to the point where it could devastate your life. And you want to be a protector of your own person, but you need to know the consequences of purposely doing it because someone's going to murder you or kill or rape or someone you love, but also the fact that, my goodness, when you take a life, police officers that do that statistically retire at a huge rate, higher than the average police officer, because it's so hard on them, and they're supposed to be hardened, trained professionals. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with you. The thing is, carrying a gun is not as easy as just sticking a cell phone in your pocket and going about your day. And there's a lot of things to consider, like you said. If you don't walk through the world in a constant state of awareness, I'm not talking about paranoia, I'm talking about awareness. Part of that is constantly assessing situations and doing when-then thinking. When this happens, then I'm going to do that. But that when-then thinking should not be confined just to, if you're in a gunfight or if you're in a fight for your life. Okay, what happens now? Now I've used my firearm. Now what do I have to do to survive? And you're right. Law enforcement officers, military, they learned a lot of lessons over years of being involved in these kind of encounters. And so they arguably have some of the best mental health resources available to them and procedures that are designed to protect them. But what happens is you still have police officers and military people committing suicide or turning to dangerous behavior or getting themselves into dangerous lifestyles and habits to cope with the aftermath, the emotional aftermath of that. And that upsets me because what you've done is you beat the bad guy today, but he's come back to beat you from the grave.
Right.
And so what we tell everybody in our class is you need to ask for help. You need to seek counseling if you've used it, use deadly force. And if you feel that you're alone and you have nobody else to turn to, every one of our students knows that they're a member of the APG family. We're available 24/7, and they can call us up, and we will find them the help that they need.
Yeah, that's very, very good. And certainly I'm sure your students appreciate that, and I hope that everybody heard that, because my background was in counseling before I got into what my full-time job is, and dealing with individuals who have dealt with horrible situations in their background. If they don't have a support system or a network or a pastor or a family member to talk to, their rate of suicide or disengagement from society is so much higher, and it really becomes dangerous for not only themselves but potentially for others as they become more and more odd or estranged from society. They can become a danger to others as well. And we see that more probably in the military, where there's been some issues. I know we see military members come back and they get involved in things that are unthinkable, but they're just coping. And unfortunately, that happens more and more these days with the things that are happening with our military. So let's switch topics a little bit, Dom. Who should be the ones concealed carrying, and maybe who shouldn't be?
Well, I think anybody that is, you have to make a personal decision in your own heart that you are absolutely willing to take responsibility for your own personal safety. That's the bottom line. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am responsible for my own personal safety, and I am able to, if need be, use deadly force against another human being so I can go home at the end of the day, then you're ready to carry a firearm. And I think anybody who, I don't care how big you are, how small you are, what your background is, I think everybody, and I'm talking even political background, conservative or liberal, everybody wants to feel safe. And the question is, are you willing to take the steps to make yourself safe and to be safe as you move through the world? So I think men, women, young people that are going to college, that are off at college and away from home for the first time, elderly people, handicapped people. I don't think that there's really any limit to who should be carrying. Who shouldn't be carrying? I think that the Second Amendment is afforded to every citizen of this country, but I think that it's really important that if you want to carry a firearm, that you're able to look in the mirror every day and say, I am taking responsibility for my own personal safety, and I'm capable of using deadly force if I have to. If you can answer those questions, then you have the right mindset to begin with.
Right. So when it comes down to like statistics for your classes, are you seeing a lot of men, a lot of women, a mixture? Is it 50-50 or more women, less women? What are the statistics for your class schedule right now?
We see more men, but we see a lot of women. We see a lot of people in the 65-plus-year-old demographic.
Okay.
I've seen people. We've had handicapped people in our classes. I mean, it really runs it runs the full spectrum. And what's really interesting, what I find really interesting, is we open up our class and we ask people who's taking this class and believes that they're going to be carrying or wants to carry on a daily basis. And you get a significant number that do. And then we ask that question again at the end of the class. And what's really interesting to see is that people generally have, after taking some intense training, a fundamental shift. Either their fundamental shift is, you know what, maybe I'm not ready to carry a gun, or the fundamental shift is, I am going to carry my gun, and I'm going to carry it everywhere that I possibly can, which is what we do advocate. I mean, the Colonel, Dave Grossman, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, denial kills you twice.
Yeah.
Denial kills you because the bad guy will come and kill you because you didn't believe that it could happen. And then again, if you had the ability to stop that bad violence, but you didn't bring the tools along, or
right.
didn't bring your mindset along with you, and you had to watch it happen, you're going to have that emotional thing that we talked about before, and it's going to kill you that way.
Right.
So we are big advocates of carrying everywhere you possibly can legally, and everybody that wants to take responsibility for their own safety and feel safe should do it.
Right. And it's interesting because when you talk to a sheep, if I can use that language, they would say, "Man, you're just paranoid." And I have people that I've talked to that know that I'm very pro-gun and that I carry whenever I can legally, that think that I'm paranoid, even though they have a gun in their home. They just don't see the purpose of having it with you at all times. And so it's a fine line for some people that are maybe pro hunting or pro self-defense, but they just don't see that as a big need, or why would I want to carry that heavy thing around all the time? And like you said, it only takes that one day where you wish you had your gun. The Luby's massacre down in Texas, where the lady made a decision to follow the law and leave her gun in the car, and as a consequence lost both her parents in a massacre where a guy just went berserk and drove his truck through the wall and started shooting people randomly. She regrets that every day. Why didn't I just do it? And she could have taken that guy out, according to her testimony to Congress. So, it's better to have it and not need it, maybe, and then need it and not have it, right?
Absolutely. And I've been carrying a concealed firearm for several years, and I will tell you that if you do it properly, if you take the time to learn about it, it's not uncomfortable. In fact, I barely know that my gun's there many times because I've honed my system, and it's very comfortable. And in fact, when I don't have it, that's when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. I've went through the holster testing phase with my guns, and so I have a collection of holsters that I won't use and a collection of holsters that I do use on a regular basis. And
Can I say something about that, Andy?
Yeah.
What's really important is, and everybody that gets serious about concealed carry, and including law enforcement officers, we end up with that box of holsters. Yeah. Holsters that just aren't right for us. And what we really encourage our students to do is, once you've identified a holster that doesn't work for you, you don't like it, pay it forward, man. Give it to a friend, give it to a family member, find an internet forum, and offer it up for free, because it may be the perfect holster for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And the more that people are comfortable with carrying, and they have a holster and a firearm and a belt system that is good for them, they will carry more often, and they'll be safer.
Yeah, my holster of choice for my concealed carry piece is the Crossbreed Super Tuck, and it's actually the mini tuck because I've got a smaller firearm. But man, that thing is very comfortable. And there's a couple variations from different organizations. I like the Crossbreed, and it's got a nice soft leather, and it doesn't rub you wrong, and it conceals really well, and you can tuck it in. So for me, that's my number one choice. And then just an outside the waistband holster will come in handy if I have a coat on or something like that. But boy, I have the box of holsters, and I have a couple different firearm choices, and so I've got several different variations of each holster too. So maybe that's a good idea. I'll put those out on the forum and see if anybody wants them, or see if anybody I know is going to be concealed carrying and wants to try them out. Of course, they'd have to have the same gun that I have, but that's that's a possibility too. So good idea.
Thank you.
Well, you also talked about, you mentioned to me before this call that you do training with tasers, and that you're one of the first or the first taser dealer to do resale for tasers. And part of this law allows for billy clubs. Do you know if that includes collapsible batons?
It's always kind of you always get a little bit of a chuckle from people when we talk about billy clubs. It's not defined. So honestly, short of a court case, perhaps, until we can get an actual definition, I don't really see a whole lot of purpose in carrying a billy club. There's a lot of other options out there.
Right.
But me personally, I would say that a collapsible baton would fit the intent of the law, but I'm not a lawyer, so. Right. I'd hate to have somebody get jammed up for carrying a collapsible baton when they have the opportunity to carry a taser, a firearm, or a stun gun, or some other option.
So in a inclusion to a firearm, collapsible baton, or a billy club, there's the knife, which knives can be messy. If you've ever cut your finger, imagine having a knife fight. You're going to have a pretty tough stomach to go through with that. So that's a pretty aggressive weapon, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. They think, I'll just carry a knife, but that can be pretty gruesome to witness. So think through that part. But then there's the electronic weapon, and that includes stun guns and tasers. And tasers I have a big interest in for potentially my wife. Might be getting one of those for Christmas or something like that, if I can get her to do that, because she's not as into the gun as I am, but she is very into self-defense. So tell me a little bit about the tasers and why that's a good alternative. Or for me, I wouldn't mind having a non-lethal, or if you can call it non-lethal, some people have died from tasers, but a less lethal alternative, because I don't think a gun, firing a gun at someone is always the best choice. So I advocate for choices. Have options. Options are good. So tell me a little bit about the taser and what your thoughts are on that, and why you're an advocate, or why you became a reseller for that.
Sure. Well, my group, we're big proponents for taser. We believe that they developed a great tool. Those of us in my group that are in law enforcement or have been in law enforcement, I've carried tasers in that capacity and know that they're extremely effective. The civilian version of a taser, the C2, is the most popular. Civilian 2. It looks a little bit different than the law enforcement model, but its function is very, very much the same. The way a civilian taser works, the C2, it'll shoot probes out to 15 feet and will deliver a 30-second ride, for lack of a better term, to the bad guy. And the purpose of a C2 is, the victim would shoot the bad guy with it. They would set it down on the ground, and with that one trigger pull, it's going to give that 30 seconds. So it gives you 30 seconds, essentially, to run away and get to safety. You leave that taser on the ground, it's doing its job for 30 seconds. Bad guy's hopefully on the ground doing the crappie flop, and you get out of Dodge. And then you obviously are going to notify law enforcement. Law enforcement will come out. They'll do a police report. If your taser is not recovered by law enforcement and you send that police report into Taser International, they will provide you a replacement unit at no charge. And it's a phenomenal option for people. Effective today, November 1st, people are going to be able to possess a taser even without a license. You can possess a taser or stun gun, an electric weapon, in your home, in your place of business, or on land that you legally occupy. And then if you want to transport it between those places, you need to have it encased, kind of similar to what we do with a firearm prior to November 1st without a license. So if you have a concealed carry or concealed weapon license in Wisconsin, then you can carry that taser with you as well in a concealed fashion and have that as an option available to you. And it's a great option. We have a lot of people who aren't ready to take the step to carry a firearm, but they're willing to try out a taser. And we give a taser demonstration in every one of our classes, and I'll tell you, there's so much interest in it. And we've all seen the TV shows, the reality shows where tasers are used. They can be extremely effective.
Oh, man. Yeah, the funniest thing as I've been, doing my homework on tasers so I can present it to my wife is watching YouTube videos of tasers in actions. And you get some of them where the guy's trying to, it's a bunch of police officers and it's, see who can walk the farthest. And you see these gigantic guys, muscle-bound guys. And every once in a while, one guy will get a step and a half in, but generally they just flop over and just do the crappie, flop. It's really humorous to watch, but they are very effective. They can be a little dangerous if you're going to hit something hard on the way down. You could potentially, crack a skull or, do some damage that way. But alternatively to getting shot, for the person who doesn't want to necessarily take that course of action, it's a great way to give you 30 seconds or more of time to escape, which is much better than the consequences of not escaping. So how is there training available for or required for that by Taser, or is it just the state law? Like could I now as a license holder, once I get my license, just say, hey, I'm a license holder and get that, or do they require some training from someone like yourself?
No, you don't even need to be a license holder to possess the taser or electric weapon, so there is no specific training requirement. Again, if you're going to carry that, though, you do need to have the Wisconsin concealed weapon license.
Right.
We feel that any tool, especially a tool like a taser, needs to accompany, needs to have some training with it. So what we do to try to do the right thing is anybody who buys a taser from us, we're going to give them, in a group setting, free training.
Okay.
It's basic training, how it operates, how it functions. It's not a foolproof thing. Nothing is in this world. So we want people to understand its limitations as well. And we think, we're going to be able to sleep very well at night knowing that we always try to go above and beyond to give our students, the right information and the best knowledge possible.
So basically, a taser is, how much are you talking? $300 or $350, something like that?
Depending on the model and how many cartridges you order with it, you're going to look in the $300 to $400 range. If you want a unit that looks just like a law enforcement unit, they're upwards of $1,000. But the C2 is the affordable model. It's exactly the model that I would carry, and we stand behind it. We highly recommend it.
That's a highly concealable model. It has the probes that shoot out. Then there's a secondary charge if for some reason there was a second attacker or the probes didn't do the job. You could drive that into their neck or their side and give them a good jolt that way as well. What I like about the taser, that the reason that I would choose that for my wife is simply that you don't have to be within an arm's reach to use it. You still have that 15-foot distance to deal with the threat, and they don't have to be within 2.5 feet to issue them a voltage that'll knock them on their butt. So that's kind of my thought on that. Is it's just one more option, but it's also another option that you don't have to be close to use. And so I appreciate that you're going to sell that, and I know where I will be getting it if I indeed can convince my wife to let me buy it for her, and boy, I'd love two of them because, like I said, carrying a gun, the last thing I want to do is have to pull out a gun if a taser would do the job. And there's plenty of things and scenarios that I've run through where a gun is overkill, and there is a pun there, I guess, but it's overkill, and there's just no way that I want to have that that guilt in my mind that I didn't need to kill someone or take someone down like that, and just the liability of that. So yeah, that's good. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Dominic, to just kind of go through this. I'm a gun guy. I love shooting. I love going to the range. I live in the country, so my range is actually my backyard. My son is really getting into guns and hunting, and deer season's coming up here in just a short amount of time. It's just a great time to be in Wisconsin, and the fact that this concealed carry law passed in July and is finally active, it opens up opportunities for open carriers to be able to ride in their car with a loaded weapon and not have to take the bullets out and put it in a case and recase it, with the fact that you can't conceal it, guys. But it's a safer environment altogether, and it's just a great time to be in Wisconsin. So one thing I do want to know, when you were down at the Capitol, what was the feel like as far as the Capitol? Were you in the Capitol building itself?
Absolutely, yes. First thing I did is I went over to the Research Justice Center, which is the DOJ's kind of main offices across the street from the Capitol. From there, it was directed to go bring my application directly to the Attorney General's office, which is right across from the Governor's office.
Okay.
In the Capitol. And it was just a normal day in the Capitol, the usual law enforcement presence, nothing out of the ordinary. And that's the important thing here to point out. Nothing's going to really change.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And Andy, what you're doing with this podcast is great, and I really appreciate that, because anybody who's an advocate of concealed carry and gun rights has a vested interest in accurate information being disseminated, throughout the public. And I appreciate you giving us a forum to talk. I think it's important that we point out again that our group is more than willing to give free training to attorneys, free training to law enforcement agencies, and we also put our hand out to our competition. If there's an instructor out there or an instructing organization out there that is looking to maybe improve what they're presenting, or maybe has questions that they just don't have confidence in the answers to, give us a call. We'll always help out, because ultimately we're all in this together, and we all need to be good stewards of our rights.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I always close our show with carry on, and really now, as we enter this new phase where concealed carriers are going to be carrying it, you really got to set a good example for other people and I like what you said, a good steward of the law. You can effectively wreck it for a lot of people by being a jackass. And so, use common sense, be polite. Don't go out to make, a lawsuit out of things just to make a lawsuit out of things, because it really reflects poorly on the rest of us who are just excited to be able to protect our families and ourselves and people around us, if in the event of some awful thing happening, that we could be a sheepdog. So I just hope that people really do their due diligence to do the things that are supposed to happen, so we don't have the sky is falling mentality for long, because that will eventually, just like it did in all the other states, fade away, and people will realize, my goodness, law-abiding citizens actually obey the law, and it's the bad guys that you're going to have to worry about, and there's plenty of those out there. Dominic, you can be found at apgwi.com, and that's for Advanced Protection Group, LLC. It's been a great pleasure to have you on Concealed Wisconsin. I look forward to reconnecting with you soon. And if I'm in the market for a taser, I know where I'm going to go. So thanks for being part of the show today.
Hey, thank you, and God bless America.
Thanks. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode, so thanks for listening to Concealed Wisconsin's podcast. Again, please check out all the show notes for this episode at concealedwisconsin.com and visit the links mentioned to see how you can get more involved. Concealed Wisconsin is a unique online community, and we encourage you to become part of it. Head on over to concealedwisconsin.com, leave us a comment, become a fan on Facebook, or subscribe to us on YouTube. Remember, you can always listen to the podcast online. You can download it to your computer or take us on the go by subscribing on iTunes. Check out all the links at concealedwisconsin.com. Thanks for listening, and carry on.